The night the Halloween train derailed 50 feet beneath Manhattan, I heard a heartbeat where everyone else heard silence. And when I crawled through twisted metal to reach the dying man trapped in the wreckage, I realized it was him, walked away from 18 months ago because I couldn't live with the secrets his company kept. The man whose infrastructure contracts I'd questioned, whose invoices didn't add up, whose world of wealth and power I'd left behind for the honest brutality of an emergency room. Now he was bleeding out in a subway tunnel, pinned under 300 pounds of steel, and I had 40 minutes to save his life before the whole section collapsed. But that's not the worst part. As I worked to free him, Adrian pressed something into my hand, a flash drive sealed in. His fingers were cold, his pulse thready, but his eyes were clear when he whispered, "The train didn't derail by accident. Someone knew I'd be here. Someone knew what I was carrying." He told me not to let the police have it, not to trust anyone. And as I pulled him from the wreckage seconds before a support beam came crashing down, I realized I was holding evidence that powerful people had tried to bury, literally. Evidence worth killing for. What I didn't know yet was that saving Adrian's life was only the beginning. Because the moment I opened that drive, I became the next target. And the man who tried to murder him, he was still out there, watching, waiting, and now he knew I had what he wanted. The emergency staging area smelled like burnt rubber and metallic dust. Camilla pressed her stethoscope against her scrub pocket, watching paramedics sprint past yellow caution tape stretched across the subway entrance. Above ground, costumed revelers still laughed on 8th Street, unaware that 50 feet below, the F train's Halloween ghost ride had torn itself apart in the tunnel. She hadn't been inside a subway station in 18 months, not since she'd walked away from Adrian Cole's penthouse and the life that came with it. Trauma surgery kept her in fluorescent-lit ERs, not underground disaster zones. But tonight, the city's mass casualty incident protocol pulled every available surgeon into the field, and Camilla's name sat at the top of the downtown rotation list. A transit officer waved her through the turnstile. "Doctor, we've got an advanced medical post set up on the platform. 37 passengers confirmed injured, 12 critical. We're still doing secondary sweeps." Camilla descended the broken escalator, her sneakers catching on cracked tile. The platform lights flickered. Someone had draped orange emergency blankets over the benches, transforming them into makeshift triage beds. She could see the tunnel entrance ahead, black smoke still curling from the darkness, illuminated by rescue crews' headlamps cutting through the haze. "Dr. Navarro?" A firefighter in soot-streaked gear approached, holding a clipboard. "We need you to assess a VIP situation. Passenger manifest shows Adrian Cole was in the private car. Last detail lost contact." Camilla's fingers went cold. "Adrian. Here." "Which car?" "The decorative ghost train cars. The ones dressed up like vintage subway cars from the 1920s. Cole's company sponsored the whole Halloween event. He was hosting donors in car 7. The firefighter gestured toward the tunnel. "That car detached before the main derailment. We found coupling damage. Looks intentional." A transit supervisor joined them, his radio crackling. "Ma'am, we've got something else. Someone spray-painted a symbol on the tunnel wall near the detachment point. The Reclaim the Rails group, activists who've been protesting Cole's infrastructure contracts for months. They've been saying his company cut corners on track maintenance." Camilla swallowed. She remembered those contracts. Adrian had celebrated winning the city transit bid with champagne in his office, overlooking the skyline she'd once thought would be theirs. That was before she'd found the invoice discrepancies, before the argument that ended with her packing a single suitcase and returning to the hospital where she'd trained. "Have you located him?" Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Sonar picked up something 15 minutes ago. Movement in a collapsed section past car 7. We need medical clearance before sending in the heavy rescue team." She followed them into the tunnel, stepping over twisted rail ties and shattered glass. The air tasted like burned plastic. Her headlamp swept across graffiti, a red circle with a crossed-out rail symbol still wet. Fresh paint. Then she heard it. Faint. Rhythmic. A pulse. Transmitted through metal. Camilla dropped to her knees, pressing her stethoscope against a warped steel beam. There, 42 beats per minute. Slow, thready. Someone alive, trapped beneath the wreckage. "I've got a heartbeat," she called back. "We need to move now." The rescue coordinator pulled up structural scans on a tablet. "Here's the situation, Doctor. We can't bring in hydraulic equipment without risking a secondary collapse. The person you're hearing is pinned under Car 7's rear coupling, approximately 300 pounds of twisted metal pressing on their lower body. We can get a camera in there, confirm identity, assess injuries, but extraction..." He paused. "You're looking at a confined space amputation if we want them out alive within the golden hour." Camilla had performed field amputations twice in her career, both in war zones during her Doctors Without Borders rotations, never in a New York subway tunnel. "What are my resources?" "Portable surgical kit, limited anesthesia, 2 paramedics trained in tactical medicine, and a structural engineer to monitor stability. You'll work in a crawl space, maybe 30 inches of clearance. We can give you 40 minutes before the tunnel temperature becomes unsafe." She thought of Adrian's hands, the ones that used to trace her collarbone in the early morning light, before board meetings and charity galas consumed their hours. Those same hands had signed contracts she'd questioned, had waved away her concerns about safety inspections. "Get me the camera feed first," Camilla said. "I need to see who we're dealing with." A rescue technician, Adrian Cole's face appeared on screen, pale and streaked with dust. His eyes were closed, but his chest moved with shallow breaths. Blood matted his dark hair. And there, on his belt, a corporate security holster, the kind executives wore when traveling with sensitive documents. Camilla's stomach tightened. In his jacket pocket, she could see the corner of something metallic. A flash drive, the transit supervisor confirmed, checking the passenger manifest. Adrian Cole, age 38, CEO of Urban Tech Infrastructure, the guy who owns half the reconstruction contracts in this city. The engineer leaned closer to the screen. "Doctor, there's something else. See that support beam above his position? It's cracked. Any vibration from heavy machinery could bring it down. If you're going in, you go in light. No power tools until we stabilize that section." Camilla looked at the monitor, at Adrian's unconscious face. 18 months ago, she'd walked away to preserve her integrity. Now the universe had placed her in a position where only she could save his life, and in doing so, she might have to decide what happened to whatever evidence he was carrying. "I need a verbal consent form," she told the coordinator. Adrian Cole's next of kin, his medical proxy, someone who can authorize emergency amputation if it comes to that. The coordinator checked his phone. "His assistant is en route, but doctor, we don't have time to wait for paperwork. Under mass casualty protocols, you have authority to make life-saving decisions." Camilla nodded slowly. The rules were clear. Save the life first. Questions later. "Get me the surgical kit," she said, "and someone find me that assistant. I want to know exactly what Adrian Cole was doing on that train to..." Camilla crawled through the narrow gap, her headlamp illuminating jagged metal edges. The surgical pack fed through sterile supply bags on a rope system they'd rigged in 90 seconds. "Vitals?" she called back. "Heart rate 40. BP 70 over 40. He's in shock. Close. The damage was worse than the camera had shown. A steel coupling pinned his right leg from mid-thigh down. The metal bent at an angle that suggested the limb beneath was crushed. His left hand clutched his jacket pocket. Even unconscious, he was protecting something. Camilla checked his airway, then his pupils, reactive but sluggish. She placed her stethoscope against his chest and heard the pulse she'd detected through the beam. "Weak but steady, Adrian," she said softly. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm getting you out." His eyelids fluttered. For a moment, his gaze focused on her face. Recognition flickered across his features. "Cammy?" His voice came out as a rasp. "You're here? Don't talk. Save your energy." But Adrian's fingers tightened on his pocket. "The drive," he whispered. "Don't let them take it. Police can't..." He coughed and blood flecked his lips. "Adrian, stop. I need to assess your..." His hand found hers with surprising strength. Fail by accident. Someone knew I'd be here. Someone knew what I was carrying. His eyes locked onto hers with the same intensity she remembered from late-night conversations in his study, when he'd confided things he never told his board. The invoices you asked about last year? You were right, all of it. Evidence is on that drive. But if it goes to the wrong people... A grinding sound echoed through the tunnel. The cracked support beam shifted an inch. "We need to move," Torres shouted from the entrance. "That beam won't hold much longer." Camilla made a split-second decision. She reached into Adrian's pocket and pulled out the flash drive, a titanium-cased device with a biometric lock. She tucked it into her own scrub pocket. "I've got it," she told him. "Now let me save your life." She called back to Torres. "Start the IV line, push fluids. I'm going to assess whether we can lift this coupling or if we're looking at amputation." Turn to the structural engineer monitoring from the entrance. "How much weight are we dealing with?" 310 pounds of steel. The coupling's wedged between two concrete support pillars. If you can separate the pillars by 8 inches, the coupling slides free. Can we do that without collapsing the tunnel? There's a hydraulic spreader rated for that, but using it could trigger vibrations that bring down that cracked beam. Camilla looked at Adrian's leg, then at the beam above them. The choice was brutal. Risk both their lives trying to save the limb, or amputate now in controlled conditions. Then she noticed something. The coupling wasn't just pinning Adrian's leg, it was resting on a piece of decorative paneling from the ghost train car, the kind of thin wood veneer meant to look like vintage subway walls. If she could slide that panel out. "Torres, I need the hand spreader. The manual one, not get me a flat pry bar." She worked quickly, inserting the pry bar beneath the decorative panel. Slowly, she levered it up, creating a 1/4-inch gap. Then she slid the hand spreader into position and began pumping. The coupling shifted. Adrian gasped in pain but didn't cry out. "Almost there," Camilla murmured. "Hold on." The coupling lifted another inch. She could see his leg now, badly bruised, possibly fractured, but the skin was intact. No arterial damage, salvageable. Pull him out. 1, 2, 3. Together they dragged Adrian free. The moment his body cleared the coupling, the cracked support beam gave way with a thunderous crack. Camilla shielded Adrian with her body as dust filled the crawl space. When the rumbling stopped, she checked his pulse. Still there. Stronger. They pulled him through the tunnel on a rescue board, emerging onto the platform to applause from the other first responders. Someone handed Camilla a bottle of water. She drank without tasting it, her mind already racing ahead to what Adrian had said. The train didn't derail by accident. The emergency room at Bellevue received Adrian 40 minutes after extraction. Camilla rode with him in the ambulance, monitoring vitals while the flash drive felt like a burning coal in her pocket. She'd already made one call, not to the police but to her mentor, Dr. Helena Reyes, the hospital's chief of surgery, and the only person she trusted with complicated ethical questions. Compound fracture, possible compartment syndrome, but circulation is intact, Camilla told the ER team as they transferred Adrian to a gurney. "Get me x-rays and a vascular consult. I want him in OR2 within the hour." Through the chaos. "The drive," he mouthed. She nodded once. Later, while the radiology team wheeled Adrian away, a woman in a tailored black suit approached Camilla, mid-30s, carrying a leather portfolio, with the precise posture of someone who'd learned to command rooms full of wealthy men. "Dr. Navarro, I'm Rebecca Hahn, Mr. Cole's executive assistant and medical proxy." She extended a hand. "Thank you for saving his life. The board has been notified, and his legal team is standing by for whatever you need." Camilla shook her hand, studying Rebecca's face. No tears, no panic, just controlled efficiency. "How long have you worked for Adrian?" 6 years. I handle his calendar, his contracts, and occasionally his disasters." Rebecca's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes, including the ones he creates himself. "What was he doing on that train tonight?" "Meeting with potential investors for the Phase 3 subway modernization project. The Halloween ghost ride was supposed to be a publicity event, show that Urban Tech's safety record is impeccable." Rebecca's voice carried a hint of irony. Obviously, that didn't go as planned. Camilla lowered her voice. Adrian said the derailment wasn't an accident, that someone knew he'd be there. Rebecca glanced around the ER, then stepped closer. 3 weeks ago, someone sent anonymous emails to the city council claiming Urban Tech falsified safety inspections on the F-train line. The company's stock dropped 12%. Adrian was convinced it was a corporate sabotage campaign, competitors trying to destroy his reputation before the Phase 3 bid deadline. And now? Now I'm wondering if those emails were true. Rebecca pulled out her phone, showing Camilla a screenshot. This text came to Adrian's private line 10 minutes before the derailment, from a blocked number. Camilla read the message. "The ghosts of bad infrastructure are coming for you tonight. You should have listened when you had the chance." "Did you show this to the police?" "Not yet. Adrian specifically instructed me to wait until he could." Rebecca paused as a transit detective approached them, badge clipped to his belt. "Ladies, I'm Detective Marcus Odom, NYPD Transit Bureau. I need to speak with whoever pulled Adrian Cole from that tunnel." He looked at Camilla. "That'd be you, Doctor?" "Yes." "Walk me through what you found down there, specifically anything Cole said before you extracted him." Camilla felt the weight of the flash drive in her pocket. She thought about Adrian's words. If it goes to the wrong people, who were the wrong people? Police investigating his company? Prosecutors building a case? Or someone else entirely? "He was semi-conscious," Camilla said carefully. "Disoriented from shock and blood loss. He didn't say anything coherent. It was the first lie she'd told in her medical career, and it tasted like metal on her tongue." Detective Odom studied her face. "Interesting, because one of the rescue techs reported hearing Cole mention something about invoices and evidence. Said it looked like you two were having a pretty intense conversation before the beam collapsed." Rebecca stepped forward smoothly. "Detective, Dr. Navarro just spent the last hour saving a man's life in a collapsing subway tunnel. If you want to interrogate her, you can do it through the hospital's legal department. Right now she has a patient to prep for surgery." Odom handed Camilla a business card. "Call me when you remember what he actually said, Doctor. Because here's what we know. That train car was deliberately detached using a manual coupling release. Someone accessed the maintenance hatch. We've got footage from the platform showing a figure in an orange transit worker vest near that car 20 minutes before departure. No ID badge visible." He turned to Rebecca. "And Ms. Hahn, I'll need your client's phone records, email logs, and security footage from his office for the past month. We're treating this as an attempted murder investigation." After Odom left, Rebecca waited until they were alone. "Did he give you something? Adrian?" Camilla met her gaze. "What makes you think that?" "Because I've worked for him long enough to know how his mind works. If he thought he was going to die tonight, he would have tried to protect his most valuable asset." Rebecca's voice dropped. "Whatever he gave you, be careful. There are people who've been trying to get their hands on Adrian's files for months, people with resources, people who don't mind collateral damage." Before Camilla could respond, her pager buzzed. She excused herself and headed to the surgical floor, her mind racing. In the changing room, she locked the door and examined the flash drive. The biometric lock required a fingerprint scan, probably Adrian's. But there was also a manual override slot, the kind used for emergency data recovery. Dr. Reyes knocked on the door. "Camilla, you ready to scrub in?" Camilla tucked the drive back into her locker and opened the door. Surgical scrubs, her gray hair pulled back, her dark eyes sharp with concern. "Helena, I need advice. About the fracture repair or about whatever's making you look like you want to flee the country." Camilla told her everything. The flash drive, Adrian's warning, the detective's questions, Rebecca's implications. When she finished, Helena was quiet for a long moment. "You know what I'm going to say. That I should turn it over to the police immediately, that you should do whatever protects your medical license and your conscience in that order." Helena touched Camilla's shoulder. "But I'll also say this. I've been in surgery for 30 years. I've seen what happens when powerful people get caught doing terrible things. They don't go down alone. They take everyone nearby with them, including the doctors who tried to help. So what do? First, You perform flawless surgery on that man's leg, and you find out what's on that drive before you decide who deserves to see it. Because if Adrian Cole was willing to die protecting that evidence, it's either the key to exposing something massive or the key to destroying innocent people, and you won't know which until you look. The surgery took 3 hours. Camilla repaired Adrian's fractured femur with a titanium rod, reconstructed damaged muscle tissue, and restored blood flow to his lower leg. Throughout the procedure, her hands moved with the precision she'd learned during residency, the kind of muscle memory that took over when the mind was too full of questions. Adrian stabilized in recovery at 2:47 a.m. Camilla sat in the surgical waiting room, still in her scrubs, drinking terrible coffee from a vending machine. The flash drive burned in her locker 3 floors above. Rebecca Hahn appeared in the doorway, looking exhausted but immaculate. "How is he?" "He'll walk again. Might need physical therapy for 6 months, but full recovery is likely." "Can I see him?" "Not until morning. He needs rest." Camilla set down her coffee. "Rebecca, tell me the truth. What's on that drive?" Rebecca sat down heavily. For the first time, her polished exterior cracked. "Honestly, I don't know the specifics, but I know this. 3 months ago, Adrian asked me to compile every invoice, every safety report, every inspection log from the F-Train modernization project. Then one day he called me into his office and said, 'If anything happens to me, there's evidence that needs to reach the U.S. Attorney's office. Not the police, not the mayor, the federal prosecutors.'" "Why not the police?" "Because Adrian suspected someone in the transit authority was involved. Someone with access to police reports, safety inspections, maintenance schedules." Rebecca leaned forward, said that our company's head of engineering, a man named Thomas Brennan, died in a hit-and-run outside his apartment in Queens. The police called it an accident. Adrian called me at 3 in the morning and said, "They're cleaning up witnesses." Camilla felt cold. Why didn't Adrian go to the authorities then? He tried. He contacted the U.S. Attorney's office, requested a meeting. They scheduled him for November 8th, 2 weeks from now. He was supposed to present evidence of a conspiracy to defraud the city of millions in infrastructure funds, fake safety falsified inspection reports. Rebecca's voice hardened. Tonight was supposed to be a publicity stunt to keep investors happy while he waited for that meeting. Instead, someone tried to kill him. And you think whoever's behind this knew about the meeting? I think someone has access to federal appointment schedules, which means this goes deeper than Dr. Navarro. Patient in recovery is awake and asking for you. Camilla found Adrian in a private room, his leg elevated and wrapped in surgical dressing. He looked pale but alert, his dark eyes tracking her as she entered. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." She checked his vitals on the monitor. "Pain level?" "Manageable, thanks to you, Cammy. I know what I'm asking is unfair, but I need you to trust me one more time. Adrian, there's a man named Marcus Odom, transit detective. He's clean. I had him vetted 6 months ago when I first suspected something was wrong, but he's not high enough in the chain to protect you if this goes public too soon." Adrian's grip tightened. "The U.S. attorney assigned to public corruption cases is named Sandra Vega. She's expecting me on November 8th. That drive contains enough evidence to dismantle a fraud network that spans 3 city agencies and 2 private construction firms." "Then why not just hand it to her now?" "Because the moment that evidence surfaces, everyone involved will start destroying records and creating alibis. The U.S. attorney needs time to coordinate with the FBI, get warrants, freeze accounts." Adrian's voice dropped. "But if I'm right about who's involved, they'll come after that drive, and they'll come after whoever has it." Camilla pulled her hand back. "So you want me to become a target?" "I want you to stay alive, which means you need to know what you're protecting." He gave her a series of numbers. "That's the override code for the biometric lock. When you open that drive, you'll find a folder called Cascade. Inside are payment records showing that someone in the Transit Authority received $3 million in offshore accounts over 18 months. In exchange, they approved safety inspections that never happened, accepted materials that didn't meet specifications, and signed off on maintenance reports for work that was never done. Who? Deputy Commissioner Ronald Hartley, the man who oversees subway safety for the entire city. The man who personally approved the F-Train's Halloween ghost ride event tonight. The man who knew exactly which car I'd be in and exactly when that train would be in the tunnel. Camilla's breath caught. He tried to kill you. He tried to eliminate the witness before I could testify, and if that drive disappears, there's no case. Just my word against a decorated civil servant with 30 years of spotless service. Before Camilla could respond, Detective Odom appeared in the doorway. Mr. Cole, I need to ask you some questions about tonight. Doctor, if you could give us some privacy? Adrian held Camilla's gaze. Whatever you decide, I'll understand. You didn't ask for this. She left the room, her mind spinning. In the hallway, she nearly collided with a man in a transit authority jacket. Orange, reflective stripes, exactly like the one Odom had described from the security footage. Excuse me, the man said, reaching past her toward Adrian's door. Camilla's instincts screamed. She stepped in front of him. Visiting hours are over. Family only. I'm from the transit authority. We need Mr. Cole's statement about the derailment. Standard procedure for workplace accidents. He's under sedation. Come back tomorrow. The man's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled, cold and professional. Of course. Tomorrow. He walked away, his footsteps too quiet for someone wearing work boots. Camilla waited until he disappeared. I need you to check that man's credentials and get hospital security to monitor this floor. No one. She went back to the OR changing room, unlocked her locker, and pulled out the flash drive. Her hands shook as she typed the override code into the biometric scanner. The drive unlocked, and Camilla realized that saving Adrian's life had been the easy part. Now she had to decide if she was brave enough or foolish enough to save his truth. Camilla sat in her apartment at 4 a.m., laptop open on her kitchen table, the flash drive glowing faintly in the USB port. She'd called in sick for her morning shift. The first time in 7 years she'd used personal leave without a legitimate medical reason. The Cascade folder contained 97 files, each one a piece of evidence that would destroy careers, end political ambitions, and possibly send people to federal. She clicked on a file labeled Inspection Report F-Line July 2024 PDF. It showed Deputy Commissioner Ronald Hartley's signature authorizing track safety approval for the section where tonight's derailment occurred. The document was dated July 15th. Then she opened a second file, Security Footage July 15, 2024 MP4. The timestamp showed Hartley at a charity golf tournament in the Hamptons on July 15th, 200 miles from the inspection site. He couldn't have physically signed that report. The third file made her stomach turn. A bank transfer from a shell company called Metropolitan Rail Solutions LLC to an offshore account in Hartley's wife's maiden name. $3 million, transferred in increments of $75,000 over 18 months. Metropolitan Rail Solutions was owned by Adrian's company. Camilla's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You opened the drive. That was a mistake. Her blood went cold, shaking. Before she could respond, another message appeared. Look out your window. She lived on the 3rd floor of a brownstone in Brooklyn. Her window faced the street. Slowly, Camilla walked to the curtain and pulled it back an inch. A black sedan sat across the street, engine running, headlights off. Someone in the driver's seat was watching her building. She stepped back, her heart pounding. Then her phone rang. Rebecca Hahn. Dr. Navarro, are you at home? Yes, there's a car outside. Get out now. Someone in a transit authority uniform tried to access his phone while he was sleeping. Security caught them, but they got away. Rebecca's voice was urgent. They know you have the drive. They're coming for it. Rebecca, there's something in these files I don't understand. One of the shell companies paying Hartley. It's connected to Adrian's corporation. Silence on the line. Rebecca? Metropolitan Rail Solutions was created 3 years ago by Thomas Brennan, our head of engineering, the one who died in the hit and run. Rebecca's voice cracked slightly. Adrian didn't know about it until he started investigating the invoices. Brennan was running a parallel fraud op. He'd bid on city contracts, then use Metropolitan Rail to subcontract the actual work, but pocket the difference by using cheaper materials and falsifying inspections. Hartley helped him cover it up. And Adrian? Adrian found out 6 months ago when he noticed payment discrepancies in the quarterly reports. He confronted Brennan, threatened to go to the authorities. 2 days later, Brennan was dead. Adrian blamed himself for getting him killed. That's why he's been so careful about who sees this evidence. Camilla heard footsteps in the hallway outside her apartment. Slow, deliberate. Someone was checking door numbers. "Rebecca, I have to go." She hung up, grabbed the flash drive, and shoved it into her jeans pocket. Then she pulled on a jacket and opened her fire escape window. Cold November air rushed in as she climbed onto the metal grating. Below, the black sedan's doors opened. 2 men in dark clothing got out, heading toward her building's entrance. Camilla climbed down 1 floor, then swung over to the neighboring building's fire escape, a move she'd practiced during a fire drill years ago, but never thought she'd actually need. She dropped into the alley behind the buildings and ran. 3 blocks away, she ducked into an all-night diner and caught her breath. The elderly waitress brought coffee without asking. Camilla's hands wrapped around the warm mug, trying to stop shaking. She thought about Adrian in his hospital bed, drugged and vulnerable. She thought about Thomas Brennan, dead on a Queens street. She thought about the 18 months she'd walked away from Adrian because she couldn't reconcile loving a man whose company did questionable things with loving herself. Now she understood. He'd been trying to fix it from the inside, and it had nearly killed him. Her phone buzzed again. This time the text came from Detective Odom. "Dr. Navarro, I need you to come to the precinct immediately. She didn't respond. Instead, she opened her contacts and found a number she'd never called before. Sandra Vega, U.S. Attorney, Eastern District of New York. Adrian had made her memorize it 18 months ago, back when she'd first questioned the invoices. "Just in case," he'd said. Camilla took a professional voice answered on the 3rd ring despite the early hour. "Vega. Ms. Vega, my name is Dr. Camila Navarro. Adrian Cole asked me to contact you about evidence related to public corruption in the Transit Authority. I have a flash drive containing financial records, falsified inspection reports, and bank transfers to Deputy Commissioner Ronald Hartley, and someone just tried to break into my apartment to take it from me." Silence. Then, "Where are you right now?" "A diner in Brooklyn. I don't feel safe going home." "Stay there. I'm sending 2 FBI agents to pick you up. They'll be there in 15 minutes. Do not open that drive again. Do not forward any files, and do not tell anyone where you are." "Dr. Navarro, if what you're telling me is accurate, you're now a material witness in a federal investigation, which means you're under my protection as of this moment." The FBI field office in Manhattan felt like a fortress. Camilla sat in a sterile conference room with Sandra Vega, 2 FBI agents, and a forensic accountant who'd been examining the flash drive for the past 6 hours. It was noon. Camilla had been awake for 32 hours straight. "This is extraordinary," the accountant said, scrolling through spreadsheets on a large monitor. "Deputy Commissioner Hartley received payments from Metropolitan Rail Solutions on the 15th of every month, for 18 months. Each payment corresponds to a major safety inspection approval on the F, A, and C lines. But here's what's interesting. The shell company's actual construction work was subcontracted to a firm called Apex Building Group, which doesn't exist. The business license is fake. The tax ID is stolen from a defunct company in Nevada, and the listed address is a vacant lot in Queens." Sandra Vega leaned forward. "So the money went to Hartley, but the work was never done?" "Correct. The city paid Urban Tech Infrastructure millions for track modernization. Urban Tech's internal fraud operation routed it through Metropolitan Rail, and Hartley signed off on inspections for work that never happened. The money just disappeared into offshore accounts." "And Adrian Cole?" "His signature appears on the original contracts with the city, but there's no evidence he knew about Metropolitan Rail until recently. In fact," the accountant opened another file. "There's an internal memo from Cole to his CFO dated April 2025, demanding a full audit of all subcontractor relationships. That's when he must have discovered the fraud." One of the FBI agents spoke up. We've been monitoring Hartley since you arrived this morning, Ms. Vega. He called in sick to work and hasn't left his house in Westchester. His lawyer contacted our office an hour ago, asking about the status of any ongoing investigations into transit authority contracts. Sandra Vega turned to Camilla. I need you to walk me through everything Adrian Cole said to you in that tunnel. Every word you can remember. Camilla recounted the conversation. Adrian's warning about the police, his insistence that the drive reach the U.S. Attorney's office, his mention of someone knowing he'd be on that train. He said, "If it goes to the wrong people," Camilla finished. I think he meant anyone connected to Hartley. Anyone who might warn him before you could secure the evidence. Vega nodded slowly. Smart man. If this had gone to the NYPD first, it would have been routed through channels that Hartley monitors. He would have had time to destroy records, flee the country, or orchestrate another accident. She looked at Camilla with something like respect. You did the right thing, Doctor, even though it put you in danger. What happens now? Now we move fast. I'm requesting emergency warrants for Hartley's home, his office, and his bank records. We'll coordinate with the FBI's white-collar crime unit to freeze the offshore accounts, and we'll place Adrian Cole under federal protection until he can testify. Vega paused. As for you, I'm offering witness protection until the trial. You'll be relocated, given a new identity. No. Camilla's voice came out firmer than she felt. I have patients who depend on me. A surgical rotation that can't be interrupted. I'm not running from this. Dr. Navarro, the people involved in this conspiracy tried to derail a train and kill a man. They broke into your apartment. They're not going to stop just because we have their bank records. Then arrest them. We will, but that takes time. Building a federal case against a deputy commissioner requires months of preparation. We need testimony from engineers, accountants, construction workers. We need to trace every dollar, verify every fraudulent signature. You're looking at a trial date next fall at the earliest. Camilla thought about Adrian lying in his hospital bed, about the months of recovery ahead of him, about the fact that she'd walked away once because she couldn't handle the moral complexity of his world, and now she was drowning in it. I want to see Adrian, she said. Before I agree to anything, I need to talk to him. The FBI agents escorted Camilla back to Bellevue Hospital, borrowed clothes, jeans, and a Columbia University sweatshirt that smelled like laundry detergent. Her own clothes were being held as evidence to a secure floor. 2 uniformed officers stood outside his door. Inside, he was sitting up in bed, his injured leg still elevated, talking on the phone. When he saw Camilla, his expression transformed, relief and guilt and something deeper she couldn't quite name. He ended the call. Cammy, thank God. Rebecca told me what happened. Are you okay? Am I okay? She laughed, but it came out sharp. Adrian, I haven't slept in 2 days. People tried to break into my home. I'm apparently a federal witness now, so no, I'm not okay. I'm sorry, I never should have. Stop. She moved closer to his bed. You saved evidence that's going to stop corrupt officials from endangering thousands of people. You risked your life doing the right thing. Don't apologize for that. I risked your life. No. You trusted me with the truth. There's a difference. Camilla sat in the chair beside his bed, suddenly exhausted. Why didn't you tell me 18 months ago, when I found those first invoice discrepancies? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Because I was ashamed. You looked at me like I was someone worth respecting, and I was running a company where my own head of engineering was defrauding the city. I thought if I could fix it quietly, make it right before you knew how bad it was. He trailed off. But I underestimated how deep the corruption went, and I lost you anyway. You didn't lose me because of the corruption, Adrian. You lost me because you wouldn't let me help. You shut me out, made decisions alone, carried everything yourself. She reached for his hand. I'm a trauma surgeon. I deal with messy, complicated, life-threatening situations every day. Did you really? His fingers laced through hers. I thought I was protecting you. And look how well that worked out. Despite everything, Adrian smiled. It was the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in years, the one that reminded her why she'd fallen for him in the first place. "The U.S. attorney says the trial won't happen until next fall," Camilla said. "They're offering me witness protection. I don't know. Part of me wants to run as far from this as possible." She looked at their joined hands. "Another part remembers why I became a doctor. Help people who can't help themselves. To stand up when something's wrong. You don't owe me anything, Cammy. You've already saved my life once. This isn't about owing you. It's about who I want to be." She met his eyes. "Tell me the truth. If the roles were reversed, would you run?" "No. Then neither will I." 2 days after Camilla turned over the flash drive, everything fell apart. When Detective Odom appeared at the nurse's station, his expression grave. "Dr. Navarro, we need to talk. Privately." They went to an empty conference room. Odom closed the door and placed a tablet on the table. "The Transit Authority released their preliminary investigation report this morning. According to their findings, the Halloween train derailment was caused by mechanical failure, a faulty coupling that hadn't been properly maintained. They're blaming urban tech infrastructure for inadequate safety protocols." Camilla's stomach dropped. "That's not what happened. Adrian told me the coupling was manually released." "I know. I reviewed the forensic evidence myself. Someone used a maintenance key to disengage that coupling from inside the train." Odom pulled up a photo on the tablet. "But here's the problem. The only maintenance keys for that section are issued to Urban Tech's contracted engineers. And according to security logs, Adrian Cole checked out a master key from the equipment depot 3 hours before the derailment. He wouldn't sabotage his own train. Maybe not, but someone wants everyone to think he did." Odom swiped to another image, a screenshot from a news website. The headline read, "Billionaire CEO's fraud scheme exposed. Did Adrian Cole stage subway accident to destroy evidence?" The article detailed allegations that Adrian had been running Metropolitan Rail Solutions, that he'd personally authorized fraudulent inspections, and that the derailment was his attempt to fake his own death while destroying incriminating documents. The source was listed as a senior transit authority official speaking on condition of anonymity. Hartley was fighting back. "There's more," Odom said grimly. "The U.S. Attorney's Office received an anonymous package this morning. Inside was a ledger showing payments from Urban Tech to Adrian Cole's personal offshore account, the same account that supposedly received fraud payments. Timestamps show the transfers happened on dates when Cole was traveling internationally. The implication is that he was the mastermind, not the whistleblower." Camilla's hands clenched. "That ledger is fake. It has to be. Using it now. But, Doctor, here's what concerns me. Whoever created that forgery had access to Adrian Cole's actual financial records. They knew his account numbers, his travel schedule, his signature patterns. This isn't some amateur cover-up. This is a sophisticated operation designed to flip the narrative." "So what does this mean for the federal case?" Odom hesitated. "It means Sandra Vega is under pressure to drop the investigation. Without additional corroborating evidence, it's Adrian's word against a decorated deputy commissioner, backed by falsified documents. And right now, public opinion is turning against your friend." Camilla pulled out her phone and searched Adrian's name. The headlines were brutal. "From hero to villain, the fall of Adrian Cole. Subway survivors demand answers. Was billionaire running fraud ring?" She called Rebecca. "Have you seen the news?" "It's worse than the news," Rebecca said, her voice tight. "The Urban Tech Board held an emergency meeting an hour ago. They've placed Adrian on administrative leave pending their internal investigation. They're freezing his access to company accounts, his email, everything. And 3 of our biggest investors just pulled out of the Phase 3 bid. We're losing millions by the hour." "Can they do that?" He's the CEO. "He's the CEO who's being accused of fraud and attempted insurance fraud by staging an accident. The board has a fiduciary duty to protect shareholders. They're distancing themselves from him as fast as possible." Camilla ended the call and went straight to Adrian's room. He was sitting up in bed, staring at a laptop screen, his face pale. "You saw," he said flatly. "Adrian, this is obviously a setup. The U.S. attorney knows. The U.S. attorney called me an hour ago. She's postponing the meeting scheduled for November 8th. She says she needs time to verify the flash drive's contents against the forged ledger. Adrian closed the laptop. Camilla, they're winning. Hartley's team is systematically dismantling my credibility while the real evidence gets buried in forensic analysis. Then we find more evidence. There has to be something they can't fake. There is, but it's dangerous. Adrian reached for a notebook on his bedside table and wrote down an address. This is Thomas Brennan's apartment in Queens, the one where he died. His wife still lives there. Before he was killed, Brennan told me he'd kept backup records, paper files, photographs of falsified documents, recorded phone calls with Hartley. He called it his insurance policy. Did you tell the FBI? I tried, but Mrs. Brennan won't talk to authorities. She's convinced the police are involved in her husband's death. She thinks if she comes forward, she'll be next. Adrian looked at Camilla with exhaustion in his eyes. But she might talk to you. As a doctor, someone who's not connected to the investigation. Someone who saved my life. Adrian, if those files exist, they could prove everything. They could show the pattern of fraud, connect Hartley directly to the conspiracy. They could also get you killed, just like they got her hand. I won't ask you to do this, I can't. Camilla thought about the headlines, about Adrian's reputation being destroyed in real time, about Hartley walking free while innocent people paid for his crimes. She thought about the 18 months she'd spent trying to live a simple, ethical life, and how that simplicity had been an illusion all along. Give me the address, she said. The apartment building in Queens was a modest brick structure from the 1960s, with narrow hallways that smelled like boiled vegetables and old carpet. Camilla climbed to the 3rd floor, her heart pounding, and knocked on apartment 3C. A woman in her 50s answered, thin, with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun. Her eyes were red-rimmed but sharp. I don't talk to journalists. I'm not a journalist. I'm Dr. Camila Navarro. I'm a trauma surgeon at Bellevue, and You're the woman who saved Adrian Cole. Mrs. Brennan's expression hardened. The man who got my husband killed. Mrs. Brennan, please. Adrian didn't kill Thomas. He was trying to stop the fraud that Thomas discovered. That's why Thomas died, because he knew too much. And now you're here asking me to put myself in the same danger? To hand over the files that my husband died protecting? Mrs. Brennan started to close the door. Wait, Camilla pulled out her phone and showed her the news articles. Right now, the people who killed your husband are destroying Adrian's reputation. They're making him look like the criminal while they walk free. If we don't stop them, Thomas's death will have been for nothing. Everything he tried to expose will stay buried. Mrs. Brennan's hand trembled on the doorknob. Thomas told me to destroy those files if anything happened to him. He said they were too dangerous to keep, but you didn't destroy them. No, because destroying them felt like letting them win. She opened the door wider. Come in. The apartment was small and meticulously clean. Photos of Thomas Brennan covered the walls, a tall man with kind eyes and graying temples, smiling in pictures from construction sites, family gatherings, company events. In one photo, he stood beside Adrian at a ribbon-cutting ceremony, both of them wearing hard hats and holding shovels. He loved that job, Miss Brennan said softly. He believed in building things that would last, infrastructure that would serve the city for generations. When he found out what Metropolitan Rail was doing, the cheap materials, the falsified inspections, it destroyed him. He spent months gathering evidence, trying to figure out how high they led Camilla to a small office. On the desk sat a locked file box. Everything's in here. Payment receipts from the shell company accounts, photos of substandard rail materials being installed, safety inspection forms with forged signatures, and recordings. Thomas wore a wire to 3 meetings with Deputy Commissioner Hartley. He documented Hartley explicitly approving fraudulent safety reports in exchange for payments. Camilla's breath caught. This is exactly what we need. This proves Adrian was telling the truth. It also proves my husband was planning to testify, which is why they killed him. Mrs. unlocked the box with shaking hands. 2 days after Thomas told Adrian about these files, He was struck by a hit-and-run driver outside our building. The police said it was an accident. The driver never stopped, never came forward. But I know better. Someone was watching Thomas. Someone knew he was a threat. She pulled out a thick envelope. The night before he died, Thomas gave me this. He said, "If I don't make it, find someone brave enough to use this evidence." He thought it would be Adrian, but Adrian was too careful, too worried about legal procedures and proper channels. By the time Adrian was ready to act, it was too late. Camilla took the envelope. Inside were dozens of documents, bank statements, emails, inspection reports, and a small digital recorder. "The recorder has 4 conversations," Mrs. Brennan said. "The last one was recorded 3 days before Thomas died. Hartley is on. He says, if you go public with this, you'll regret it. People who cause problems for me tend to have accidents." "Mrs. Brennan, this is a direct threat. This connects Hartley to your husband's death." "I know. But who do I give it to? The police? The transit authority? They're all connected. Anyone I approach could be the one who gives the order to silence me too." Tears streamed down her face. Months keeping these files hidden, terrified that whoever killed Thomas will come for me next. And now you're here, asking me to finally use them, to risk everything. Camilla knelt beside the older woman's chair. "I can't promise you'll be safe. But I can promise that if you help us now, the U.S. Attorney will put you under federal protection. You'll have FBI agents watching your home, monitoring your safety. If he goes to trial, you'll be the key witness who brings him down. And if they come for me before the trial, then I'll make sure the whole world knows what you risked. Your husband's name will be cleared. The truth will come out." Camilla met her eyes. Sometimes courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. Mrs. Brennan was quiet for a long moment. Then she placed her hand over Camilla's. "Thomas always said the best people are the ones who help when it's dangerous, when there's something real at stake." She took a shaky breath. "Take the files. Give them to someone who'll use them properly. And tell Adrian Cole that my husband believed in him, even at the end." Camilla left the apartment with the file box tucked under her arm, her mind racing with relief. She had the evidence, the documents, everything needed to corroborate Adrian's claims and expose Hartley's conspiracy. She was halfway down the block when she noticed the black sedan, the same one that had been outside her apartment 2 nights ago. Same make, same tinted windows. It was parked across the street, engine running. Camilla's pulse spiked. She quickened her pace toward the subway entrance, clutching the file box tighter. Behind her, she heard car doors opening. Subway stairs were crowded with evening commuters. She pushed through, apologizing as she jostled past people, and swiped her Metro card with trembling hands. The turnstile clicked. She was through. Behind her, 2 men in dark jackets reached the turnstile. One of them vaulted over it, ignoring the transit officer's shouts. Camilla sprinted down the platform toward an arriving train. The doors were closing. She squeezed through just as they shut, the file box catching on the door scattered across the subway floor. Through the window, she saw the men on the platform, their faces twisted with frustration. One of them pulled out a phone. The train pulled away. Camilla collapsed onto a seat, her whole body shaking. Commuters stared at her. Someone asked if she was okay. She wasn't okay. She'd just stolen evidence from a dead man's widow, been chased by people who'd already committed murder, and was carrying proof that could destroy a deputy commissioner. And the worst part? She had no idea who to trust anymore. When the train stopped at Union Square, Camilla got off and called the only person who might still be clean, Detective Odom. But when he answered, his voice was strained. "Dr. Navarro, where are you?" "Union Square Station. I have evidence from Thomas Brennan's files, recordings, documents, everything we need. Do not come to the precinct. Do not call the U.S. Attorney. Just listen to me carefully." Odom's voice dropped to a whisper. "Knows about Brennan's files. He's issuing a warrant for your arrest right now, claiming you're obstructing justice by removing evidence from a crime scene without authorization. He's got judges in his pocket, Camilla. If you're picked up by NYPD, those files will disappear and you'll be charged with evidence tampering. Then what do? There's one person Hartley can't control, Judge Patricia Morrison. She's the one who'll be presiding over any eventual trial. If you can get those files directly to her chambers, she can enter them into federal custody under seal. But you have to do it tonight, before Hartley's warrant goes through the system. Where's her office? Odom gave her an slate. She'll be there until 9. But Camilla, if you're caught before you reach her, I won't be able to help you. Hartley will bury those files and bury you with them. The call ended. Camilla looked at the file box in her arms, at the documents that could save Adrian and vindicate Thomas Brennan, or get her arrested for crimes she didn't commit. She thought about Mrs. Brennan's words. Sometimes courage isn't about not being afraid. Camilla headed for the exit, toward Lower Manhattan, carrying the weight of the truth. Judge Patricia Morrison's chambers were located in the Daniel Patrick Moynihan United States Courthouse, a granite building that looked like a fortress in the evening light. Camilla approached the security checkpoint, the file box conspicuous under her arm. I need to see Judge Morrison's list. Do you have an appointment? No, but I'm delivering evidence in a federal corruption case. She'll want to see this. The guard made a phone. 5 minutes later, a clerk appeared, a sharp-eyed woman in her 30s carrying a leather portfolio. Dr. Navarro, Judge Morrison will see you. Follow me. They took an elevator to the 7th floor and walked down a marble hallway lined with portraits of previous judges. The clerk knocked on a heavy oak door. Come in. Judge Morrison was a black woman in her 60s, with silver hair cut short and reading glasses perched on her nose. She sat behind a massive desk covered with legal briefs. When she saw Camilla and the file box, her expression shifted from curiosity to sharp attention. Dr. Navarro, my clerk says you have evidence related to a corruption investigation. Yes, Your Honor. Evidence that Deputy Commissioner Ronald Hartley has been accepting bribes, falsifying subway safety inspections, and threatening witnesses. Evidence that connects him to the death of Thomas Brennan, an engineer who was gathering proof of fraud. Camilla set the box on the desk, and evidence that Adrian Cole, who's being framed for these crimes, was actually trying to expose them. Judge Morrison opened the box. She pulled out the digital recorder first, then the bank statements, then the photos of substandard materials being installed in subway tunnels. Her expression grew darker with each document. Where did you get this? Thomas Brennan's widow. He collected it in the months before his death. He was planning to testify, but he was killed in a hit-and-run before he could come forward. And you removed these materials from her residence? With her permission. She's been too frightened to approach authorities because she believes the police are compromised. But she's willing to testify if you can guarantee her protection. Judge Morrison picked up the recorder. What's on this? 4 conversations between Thomas Brennan and Ronald Hartley. The last one includes a direct threat. Hartley telling Brennan that people who cause problems for him have accidents. The judge's jaw tightened. She pressed play. Thomas Brennan's voice filled the room, nervous but steady. Commissioner, I need to talk to you about the F-train inspection reports, the ones you signed off on last month. Then Hartley's voice, smooth and confident. What about them, Tom? I reviewed the actual track. The segments you approved as safe have cracks in the rail beds, corroded coupling mechanisms, and substandard electrical wiring. If we don't replace those sections, we're looking at a derailment risk within 6 months. A long pause. Then Hartley is the enemy of the good. We can't shut down the entire subway system every time there's a minor issue. The city needs functional transit more than it needs perfect safety standards. Minor issue, Commissioner, people could die. People won't die if you don't make this a problem. Now listen carefully. You're going to file a supplementary report saying those track segments meet acceptable tolerances. You're going to sign off on the safety inspection, and you're going to forget you ever had concerns. I can't do that. Hartley's voice turned cold. Then let me be very clear. Your career at Urban Tech depends on playing ball, and if you decide to be a hero, if you go public with this, you'll regret it. People who cause problems for me tend to have accidents. Ask around. Do your research. You'll find I'm not someone you want to cross. The recording ended. Judge Morrison sat back in her chair, her face carved from stone. When was this recorded? October 23rd of this year. 3 days later, Thomas Brennan was killed. And the hit and run was never solved? Correct. The judge stood and walked to her window, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. Dr. Navarro, what you've brought me is enough to open a federal investigation into Hartley for corruption, witness intimidation, and possibly conspiracy to commit murder. But it also creates a massive jurisdictional mess. Hartley is a city employee. The NYPD has primary jurisdiction over the hit and run. The Transit Authority has authority over safety violations, and the U.S. Attorney's Office needs concrete evidence of federal crimes to justify intervening. But you have that evidence now. I have a recording that might be admissible in court, or might be thrown out as illegally obtained. I have bank records that will take weeks to authenticate. And I have a witness in Mrs. Brennan who's too frightened to come forward. Judge Morrison turned back to Camilla. What I need is something that ties all of this together in a way that federal prosecutors can't ignore. A smoking gun that proves beyond doubt that deaths. Camilla's mind raced. Then she remembered something Adrian had said in the hospital. The derailment killed 2 people, she said suddenly. If we can prove that their deaths were caused by the substandard track conditions Hartley approved, that's federal negligence resulting in death. That's a charge that bypasses the jurisdictional mess and puts Hartley in your court. Judge Morrison's eyes sharpened. Go on. Thomas Brennan documented which specific track segments had safety violations. If those segments include the section where the derailment occurred, and if forensic analysis shows the derailment was caused by the exact problems Brennan identified, then you have a direct causal link. Hartley knowingly approved dangerous conditions. Those conditions killed people. That's not just corruption, that's manslaughter. The judge picked up her phone. Get me Sandra Vega from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Emergency meeting now. She looked at Camilla. Doctor, you're about to become a very important witness. I suggest you prepare for that. 2 hours later, Camilla sat in a conference room with Sandra Vega, 2 FBI forensic specialists, and an NTSB investigator who'd been pulled from the subway derailment investigation. They'd spread Thomas Brennan's documents across a large table, cross-referencing them with the official derailment report. One of the forensic specialists pointed at a photo. This shows track segment F47, photographed 6 weeks before the derailment. You can see stress fractures in the rail bed and corroded coupling mechanisms, exactly the issues Brennan warned Hartley about. The NTSB investigator pulled up a diagram on his laptop. Track segment F47 is where the derailment originated. The coupling failure that detached Adrian Cole's car happened at precisely that location. Our analysis showed the coupling mechanism had been weakened by corrosion. The metal was brittle and fractured under normal operational stress. Sandra Vega leaned forward. So the substandard materials and lack of maintenance that... Yes. If the track segment had been replaced as Brennan recommended, the coupling would never have failed. The derailment was entirely preventable. Hartley signed off on those track sections as safe. The specialist held up an inspection report with Hartley's signature. Dated August 15th, 2 months before the derailment. He certified track segment F47 as meeting all safety standards. Vega turned to Camilla. Dr. Navarro, you treated the derailment victims that night. Can you confirm casualties? 2 confirmed deaths. Marcus Webb is in car 4, and Sarah Chen, a passenger, died from head trauma in car 3. 17 others were critically injured. And in your medical opinion, were those deaths preventable? Camilla thought about the twisted metal, the blood-soaked platform, the desperate attempts to save people whose injuries were too severe. If the derailment hadn't happened, yes, those people would still be alive. Sandra Vega closed her folder with finality. Then we have everything we need. Lee knowingly approved unsafe infrastructure in violation of federal safety regulations. His actions directly resulted in 2 deaths. That's federal negligence causing death, obstruction of justice through witness intimidation, and conspiracy to defraud the government. She looked at Judge Morrison. Your Honor, I'm requesting emergency arrest warrants for Ronald Hartley and any co-conspirators identified in these documents. Judge Morrison nodded. Granted, I'll have the warrant signed within the hour. But Ms. Vega, I want one more thing. I want Adrian Cole's name cleared publicly before this hits the media. The man was nearly killed trying to expose this fraud. He deserves his reputation back. Agreed. We'll issue a press statement tonight clarifying that Cole is a cooperating witness, not a suspect. Camilla felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she'd been carrying since the moment she'd heard Adrian's pulse in that dark tunnel. Justice wasn't just coming, it was here. The arrest happened at dawn. FBI agents surrounded Deputy Commissioner Ronald Hartley's colonial house in Westchester at 5:47 a.m. Camilla watched from an unmarked van parked down the street, sitting beside Sandra Vega and Detective Odom. Through the van's tinted windows, she saw they didn't need it. Hartley opened the door himself, hair perfectly combed. He'd been expecting them. Ronald Hartley, you're under arrest for federal corruption, witness tampering, conspiracy to defraud the United States government, and negligent homicide resulting in the deaths of Marcus Webb and Sarah Chen. The lead agent read him his rights while cameras from 3 news helicopters circled overhead. Hartley's face remained impassive but as agents led him to the waiting car, his eyes scanned the street and locked onto the unmarked van. Onto Camilla. Even from 50 feet away, she could see the cold calculation in his expression. He'd lost this battle, but he wasn't done fighting. He'll lawyer up within the hour, Vega said. The arraignment is set for 10 a.m. at federal court. I want you there, Dr. Navarro. The judge needs to see the woman who risked everything to bring this evidence forward. Will Mrs. Brennan be there? She's already in protective custody. 2 U.S. Marshals are with her 24/7. We're not taking chances. The federal courthouse was packed with journalists by the time Camilla arrived. She'd changed into professional clothes, a navy dress and blazer that Rebecca had brought to her apartment, and pulled her hair back in a neat bun. She looked like what she was, a doctor who'd stumbled into a conspiracy and refused to look away. Adrian was already inside, seated in a wheelchair near the prosecutor's table. His injured leg was in a brace, but his eyes were alert. When Camilla entered, his whole face transformed with relief. "You made it," he said. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "I thought you might decide this was too much drama for one lifetime." He reached for her hand. "Thank you." Rebecca Hahn appeared beside them, carrying a tablet. "The morning news is calling trauma surgeon exposes subway corruption. The story's everywhere. Urban Tech's stock is actually up 3% because the board released a statement saying Adrian was conducting an internal investigation all along." "That's not exactly true," Adrian muttered. "It's true enough. You were investigating. You just didn't tell the board because you suspected some of them might be involved." Rebecca showed them the tablet screen. "And you were right. Our CF been receiving consulting fees from Metropolitan Rail Solutions. The FBI is questioning him now." Before Camilla could respond, the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Morrison entered, her expression grave, and the arraignment began. Ronald Hartley sat at the defense table with 3 expensive lawyers. He looked like a distinguished public servant being persecuted by overzealous prosecutors, exactly the image his team wanted to project. Sandra Vega approached the bench. "Your Honor, the United States is charging the defendant with multiple counts of public corruption, wire fraud, witness intimidation, and 2 counts of negligent homicide. We have documented evidence of the defendant accepting $3 million in bribes to approve fraudulent safety inspections, which directly caused the Halloween subway derailment that killed 2 people and injured 37 others." Hartley's lead attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client is a decorated public servant with 30 years of spotless service to this city. These accusations are based on forged documents and the word of a disgraced CEO who's attempting to scapegoat my client for his own company's failures. We move for immediate dismissal." Judge Morrison's eyes narrowed. "Counselor, I've personally reviewed the evidence. It includes authenticated bank transfers, time-stamped inspection reports with your client's signature, and audio recordings of your client threatening a witness who later died under suspicious circumstances. This case is going forward." The recordings were obtained illegally. The recordings were obtained by a private citizen. The judge turned to Vega. "Ms. Vega, I understand you have a witness prepared to testify?" "Yes, Your Honor, the widow of Thomas Brennan, the engineer who gathered the original evidence." A door opened at the back of the courtroom. Mrs. Brennan entered, flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals. She walked slowly to the witness stand, her hands trembling, but her spine straight. When she was sworn in, she looked directly at Hartley. Sandra Vega approached her gently. "Mrs., can you tell the court what your husband told you about Deputy Commissioner Hartley?" "My husband said that Hartley was destroying the city's subway system one bribe at a time, that he'd found evidence of fraud going back years, fake inspections, substandard materials, maintenance reports for work that was never done." Her voice grew stronger. "Thomas spent months documenting it all because he believed people had a right to safe transportation. He believed someone needed to stop Hartley before people died." "And what happened when your husband tried to come forward?" "Hartley threatened him, told him he'd have an accident if he didn't stay quiet." Mrs. Brennan's eyes filled with tears. "3 days later, my husband was killed by a hit-and-run driver who was never found. The police called it an accident. But I know better. Hartley had him murdered." Hartley's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection. The witness is speculating. The witness is providing testimony about threats made against her husband immediately before his death," Judge Morrison said sharply. "I'll allow it." Mrs. Brennan continued, her voice breaking. "For 6 months, I've been terrified to come forward. I kept the files Thomas left behind, but I didn't know who to trust. Then Dr. Navarro came to my door. She told me that my husband's death could mean something, that his evidence could save lives and bring the people responsible to justice. So I'm here. I'm testifying, because Thomas believed in the truth, and I won't let his death be for nothing." The courtroom was silent. Sandra Vega entered Thomas Brennan's documents into evidence. The bank records, the photos, the inspection reports. Then she played. Hartley's voice filled the courthouse. "People who cause problems for me tend to have accidents." When it ended, several journalists in the gallery were wiping their eyes. Hartley's face had gone pale. Judge Morrison addressed the defendant. "Mr. Hartley, based on the evidence presented, I'm denying bail. You'll remain in federal custody until trial. Your trial date is set for March 10th. Court adjourned." The gavel came down. As marshals led Hartley away in handcuffs, he looked back at Camilla one last time. But there was no threat in his expression now, only the hollow recognition of a man who'd finally been caught. Outside the courthouse, Camilla stood with Adrian and Rebecca as reporters shouted questions. Sandra Vega approached a cluster of microphones and made a brief statement. "Today, we've taken an important step. The evidence gathered by Thomas Brennan, protected by his widow and brought forward by Dr. Camilla Navarro, has exposed a conspiracy that endangered thousands of New Yorkers. We're committed to pursuing justice for the victims of the Halloween derailment and ensuring her called out. Dr. Navarro, what made you risk your life to expose this corruption?" Camilla stepped forward, her heart pounding. "I didn't do it alone. Thomas Brennan did the hard work of gathering evidence when it was dangerous. His widow protected it when she was terrified. Adrian Cole tried to stop the fraud from the inside, even when it nearly got him killed. I just made sure the truth didn't stay buried. What do you want people to know?" She thought about the victims on that platform, about Mrs. Brennan's trembling hands, about Adrian's pulse in the darkness. That integrity isn't about being fearless, about doing what's right even when you're afraid. And that the people who maintain our infrastructure, our trains, our bridges, our tunnels, hold our lives in their hands. We deserve leaders who take that responsibility seriously. 3 months later, Camilla stood in the same Queens apartment where she'd first met Mrs. Brennan. But this time, she wasn't alone. Adrian was with her, walking with only a slight limp now, his physical therapy nearly complete. Mrs. opened the door with a genuine smile. "Dr. Navarro, Mr. Cole, come in." The apartment looked different, lighter somehow. Fresh flowers sat on the table. The photos of Thomas still covered the walls, but they no longer felt like shrines to tragedy. They felt like celebrations of a life well lived. "I wanted to give you this," Adrian said, handing Mrs. Brennan an envelope. Its company. "The board agreed to compensate the families of everyone affected by the fraud, including yours. It's not enough to replace Thomas, but it's enough to let me breathe." Mrs. Brennan said softly. She opened the envelope and her eyes widened. This is too much. It's what you're owed. What Thomas was owed. Adrian's voice was firm. Your husband saved lives by documenting that evidence. This is the least we can do. Mrs. Brennan hugged him, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned to Camilla. Have you heard? They're naming the new safety protocol after Thomas, the Brennan standard. Every subway inspection will now require dual verification and independent oversight. They're implementing it across all 5 boroughs. Camilla felt warmth. He would. And he'd be grateful to both of you for making sure his death meant something. Later that evening, Camilla and Adrian sat on the Bellevue Hospital rooftop, the same place where they used to meet during her residency, back when their relationship was new and everything felt possible. I've been thinking, Adrian said, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, about what comes next. The board wants me to stay on as CEO, rebuild Urban Tech's reputation, but I'm not sure that's what I want anymore. What do you want? To build things that act infrastructure that serves people, not profits. Safety standards that mean something. He turned to her. I'm stepping down as CEO. I'm starting a nonprofit, an independent safety oversight organization that will audit public infrastructure projects and report directly to federal regulators. No corporate interests, no political pressure. Just engineers who care about doing things right. Camilla smiled. That sounds like you. The real you, not the one trying to please investors. Rebecca's agreed to run the business side, and I've been talking to engineering professors at Columbia about recruiting recent graduates, people who haven't been corrupted by the industry yet. He reached for her hand. I also had an idea for the medical director of our emergency response program, someone with trauma experience who knows how to make hard decisions under pressure. Adrian, just hear me out. Profit will coordinate with hospitals to train first responders for infrastructure emergencies. Subway accidents, bridge collapses, tunnel fires. We'll create protocols, run drills, make sure that when something goes wrong, people like you can save lives efficiently. His thumb traced circles on her palm. I'm not asking you to leave surgery. I'm asking if you'd consult, teach, help us build something that prevents the next derailment instead of just treating the casualties. Camilla was quiet for a long moment, watching the lights of the city spread out before them. You know what I realized during all of this? I spent 18 months trying to live a simple, clean life. Emergency room, patients, home, no complications. But that simplicity was an illusion. The world is complicated. People are complicated. And the choice isn't between avoiding mess and staying pure. It's between engaging with the mess honestly or pretending it doesn't exist. So is that a yes? It's a yes to consulting, yes to helping build something better, and yes to trying again with you. But on different terms this time. She met his eyes. No more secrets. No more protecting me from hard truths. We do this together, as equals, or we don't do it at all. Adrian pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. Together, as equals. I promise. They kissed as the November wind swept across the rooftop, carrying the sounds of the city below, sirens and traffic, and the distant rumble of subway trains running on newly inspected tracks. 6 months after the arraignment, Ronald Hartley was convicted on all counts. He received 15 years in federal prison. 3 other transit authority officials were indicted for their roles in and the city implemented comprehensive safety reforms that would protect millions of commuters for decades to come. Camilla continued her surgical rotations at Bellevue while consulting for Adrian's nonprofit. She trained first responders, developed emergency protocols, and testified before city council about infrastructure safety standards. Mrs. Brennan became an advocate for whistleblower protection, speaking at conferences about the courage it takes to stand up to powerful institutions. And Adrian Cole, the billionaire who'd nearly died in a subway tunnel, spent his days building infrastructure that would people safely home. On the anniversary of the Halloween derailment, they held a memorial at the subway station. Marcus Webb's family attended, and Sarah Chen's daughter read a poem about her mother. Camilla stood beside Adrian, their hands linked, as the names of the victims were read aloud. Later, as they walked through the tunnel where it had all begun, now fully repaired and reinforced to the highest safety standards, Adrian stopped at the spot where he'd been trapped. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't been the doctor on call that night? Camilla squeezed his hand. I try not to, because the universe put me exactly where I needed to be. To save you, to find the truth, to remember that courage is a choice we make every single day. And what choice are you making today? She smiled. To keep showing up, to keep fighting for what's right, and to keep believing that one person with evidence and the will to use it can change everything. They emerged from the tunnel into the bright afternoon light, leaving the darkness behind. Moral. Integrity means doing what's right even when it's dangerous. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to let the truth stay buried. So here's my question for you. If you found evidence that powerful people were endangering lives, would you risk everything to expose it? Or would fear keep you silent? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they choose courage over comfort, hit that subscribe button. Every week we bring you stories about people who refuse to back down, who fought for justice, and who proved that the truth is always worth protecting. Thanks for watching. And remember, the next time you ride the subway, someone fought to make sure you'd arrive home safely. Honor that fight by never staying silent when you see something wrong.